What is up, guys? Wrestling Premiere is here. A battle for brand supremacy without all the pizzazz. That's what Bragging Rights 2009 was. That said, I actually prefer Bragging Rights over the SmackDown vs. Raw thing they used to do at Survivor Series, because the only time it was actually good was 2005 and 2016. Maybe 19. Late 2009, WWE was a notable time in terms of new talent. They started to showcase a lot of these newcomers on the big stage. The Hart Dynasty, Drew McIntyre, The Miz, John Morrison, and of course, Sheamus and Kofi Kingston. The concept at the time was simple, and we actually thought that Ted DiBiase Jr. and guys like Evan Bourne would become major stars. It was a different time period, and whenever that million-dollar question of how stacked was WWE in 2008 is asked, we should respond, well, what about 2009 WWE? I'm amazed at the star power that was displayed every single week on the shows. Every week, Undertaker, John Cena, Batista, DX, Chris Jericho, CM Punk, and at one point Jeff Hardy were on the shows. You would be overwhelmed with the star power. Did that mean the shows were good? Well, SmackDown certainly was, but you can't say the same for Raw. This event was sold with the concept of SmackDown vs. Raw, and of course the finale to the rivalry between John Cena and Randy Orton. Their matches during the 2009 version of the feud were very hit and miss, with mostly misses, but WWE promised a grand finale. One thing I love about this pay-per-view is the identity. The red versus blue really shines here a lot, even to the ring ropes. And it was actually one of my favorite arenas in SVR 2011 and WWE 12 because of how different it was and how it combined both SmackDown and Raw's colors. This event did 30,000 more buys than last year's Cyber Sunday, and I get it. There's more intrigue with this show if you look at it from a 2009 perspective as opposed to Cyber Sunday, because the title didn't change hands a lot back then on those shows. 13,562 fans were in attendance in the Mellon Arena in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Alright, let's get into it. Okay, the first match in the show is between Raw's Miz and SmackDown's John Morrison. I think it's very unfortunate that these two did not have a full-fledged rivalry. Just when they planted something in 2021, they released Morrison and made him look like a goof. But this iteration of the story was simple. Morrison and Miz finally went face to face after the split. They had a good segment on SmackDown with both pointing out that the other is Jannetty. Miz was a bit higher on the totem pole than Morrison, and in another world, this would be the match for WrestleMania 27. Not for the title. Solid action early on. Both men were wrestling quick with Morrison gaining the slight edge, and the crowd was into this match. They were pretty invested because these two were considered the future of the WWE. That slight edge would grow much more. Miz was more conservative, which allowed for him to scout Morrison and take advantage. He slows the pace but isn't good enough to keep Morrison down. Great kick here, and the match shifts into the final gear. Morrison had the entire crowd behind him here. So much fire from the crowd, and they teased a victory with him connecting with the springboard but just messing up on his positioning. Then Miz took advantage of a Starship Pain attempt to win the match. Man, I wish this match had a proper ending. Morrison just fell off the top rope and Miz won with that. Other than that, this match was enjoyable. Miz seemed to wrestle with a lot of heat from the crowd. It didn't need to do much to generate heat, and Morrison was such a good face just on the basis of him standing next to the Miz. It's not much as a match to talk about because it feels like an extended Raw match, but they missed the boat not having these two face off in a heated pay-per-view match. They knew each other well, and other than Kofi Kingston, Morrison was Miz's best opponent up to this point. R-Truth and Cody Rhodes got into it backstage over the brands and of course their own talent. Rhodes was criticizing R-Truth, called him a second-rate performer on a second-rate show, and just when he wanted to do something, the Big Show managed to shut him up. The next match was a 6-woman tag team match. Michelle McCool, Beth Phoenix, and Natalya represent SmackDown. Melina, Gail Kim, and Kelly Kelly represent Raw. This is a common women's match on pay-per-view. The women's division's credibility was depleted like crazy, but some people see it different because Melina snatched that outfit. Oh, Gail Kim ate here. When you talk about the actual division, they only had like 3 stories a year. It was a bit stacked, but the credibility was not the same as it was a couple of years earlier, and it's no lie. I saw it in real time. It wasn't a big deal. Like Melina, Michelle McCool, Mickie James was. They had some good talent, but it was never that important. I even think Melina should have been more of a bigger deal, but this match was good. It surprised me a bit, but not because of the actual talent, but because when you hear 6-woman tag during this era, it's anything but an actual match. But they did everything here. SmackDown with the heels seeing as all 3 of them were just that, and the crowd was a bit into this match. They paced it great with Kelly being the odd woman here, and the heels doing everything they could to isolate her, leading to the huge tag from Melina. Melina lit up the match like crazy here. She makes the comeback, this and that, but then she falls. The heels ended up winning anyways, and I was left impressed. I do wonder how different things would have been if the Divas division actually had more substance in their matches during this time, because I feel like it wouldn't have been so bad. You know, they had some talent, and it wasn't as dry as it was in 2011, say, but they just didn't care. You know, the one time they had a good match, Night of Champions are like, why'd you have a good match? Much better than expected. Team Raw were working on their disagreements. Triple H at some points made it worse, even pointed out again that Kofi Kingston faked his Jamaican accent, which was funny, but they got through it and were more united than ever. Okay, the next match is for the World Heavyweight Championship. The Undertaker defends the gold against CM Punk, Batista, and Rey Mysterio. This was around the time where Undertaker started to yap. I don't know why he decided to start talking talking, but his promos were vocabularily more powerful than his character. All three of the challengers were former champions, and CM Punk in particular was the last one. Punk was in the doghouse because the higher-ups thought he compared himself to John Cena. And honestly, so what if I compare myself to John Cena? It wasn't even him thinking he should get John Cena treatment, but he was asking a certain question about dressing. He proceeds to get bitched horribly in a 10-minute Hell in a Cell match. And when you hear 10-minute Hell in a Cell, that sounds like a cell match between Jack Swagger and Evan Bourne, not the defending world champion who had a great summer. Batista at the time was not the same Batista we knew 2 years ago. His momentum was shot as a face, and it was clear as day that he needed to start doing something different. Also, Rey Mysterio in Pittsburgh just might be the opposite of Piper in Portland. Nothing good ever happens to him here. It was beat up CM Punk at the beginning. The match was fast and furious in the first minutes with everyone all over the place. Punk always loved throwing Rey like garbage, which is good to see, seeing as he's a deadbeat. Batista and Rey tested each other when they should have covered The Undertaker, and the match was probably the fastest on a pay-per-view during this time period. And they made sure to use all of their time. It was plenty of fun and didn't need the story of Batista and Rey to elevate it, but it's more than welcoming. Batista's big moment came when he hit the powerbomb on Undertaker, but then Rey broke the fall and he got angry. He shouted that Rey was supposed to be his friend, and he's shouting, he's like, "You're supposed to be my friend," and I'm like, did this guy's logic evaporate like Hogan's muscles in 1992? It's a fatal 4-way match, buddy. Undertaker took advantage of the choke slam, but it wasn't enough. Poor Rey, he threw him like a ticking time bomb into the ocean. Undertaker took advantage and retained the title. Yeah, I think this is a hidden gem. I was very entertained with this match. It wasn't that one-on-one thing they do during the match, but a real fatal 4-way. Not a single dull moment, and if it was more unpredictable and brought that surprise element, many would be talking about it. But even with the way it was, this was a pretty good match. Then right afterwards, after he lost, took the L, which is usual for Batista in 2009, Josh Matthews shoves a mic in Batista's face, who realizes what had transpired. He said he was tired of his best friend stabbing him in the back and straight up said he was gonna rip his head off. And I don't know if Rey's low IQ, but this guy drops the mic, stares at him the way I stare at the screen whenever Triple H opens a show, and instead of leaving, he's like, "We could work this out." Bro, this is the WWE. Everyone knows that to make a statement, they make it on you, Rey Mysterio. You see this guy staring with so much venom and hatred and not think, oh, he might do the thing he said he was gonna do. But it serves a deadbeat right. This was the hardest clothesline that Batista had done in like 5 years, and Todd Grisham responds, "He wasn't playing." Motherfucker, we saw a near decapitation and Rey Mysterio's head get sent back to the Ruthless Aggression era, and your reaction was, "He wasn't playing." And this is a huge problem with the commentary during this era. It was so monotone and generic that if you copied Todd Grisham and pasted his words to Michael Cole, if it weren't for the stupid quotes such as "the longest weekly episodic television show in history" or "vintage Batista," I wouldn't know the damn difference. There's no identity. And it's weird how I'm doing a back in the day thing for something that's technically back in the day, but Jim Ross would sell the hell out of a heel turn. Then again, it might have been the guys in the back. I don't know. Rey got his ass beat while Batista's shouting that he's supposed to be his friend, and this was a wonderful heel turn, especially afterward when he launches Tiny Rey to the barricade. Great heel turn. Batista showed what I almost believe because of how good this performance was. He showed real hatred. This was an important heel turn as Batista automatically looks better because he's more intense to be this new character, and because Rey was the victim, it all looked great. He's tiny, the super good guy, and the only guy on the roster at the time that could be launched like a garbage bag like that other than Evan Bourne. SmackDown vs. Raw 7-on-7 tag team match. Well, one falls enough to bring the trophy home. DX, Big Show, Kofi Kingston, Jack Swagger, Cody Rhodes, and Mark Henry face SmackDown. The Hart Dynasty, Finlay, Matt Hardy, R-Truth, Kane, and Chris Jericho. That SmackDown team is a bit dire, to be honest. Matt Hardy in late 2009, really? And the funniest part is, the team was even worse. Look at this. Drew McIntyre, Eric Escobar. What is this? Bro, half a second, I thought they had Puerto Rican Corey Graves. Just half a second. He doesn't even look like him. I'm sorry. He doesn't, but that's what I thought in the moment. It's obviously Eric Escobar, one of the lowest viewed videos on the channel. He was the main face of it. Check it out if you're interested. Then again, who the hell's interested in a fucking Eric Escobar video? What the hell was I thinking then? Raw had the star power and legitimate up-and-coming talent. SmackDown was strongly carried by Jericho and Kane, and it was a situation where it's like they saved their best talent for the Fatal 4-Way. Now, if this was Rey, Batista, Punk, Morrison, Truth, Jericho, and Kane, it would look much better. And there's a reason why I didn't mention Undertaker, because he's not exactly up for these brand supremacy stuff. But the match was all about bragging rights, which is literally the name of the show. This is the match they sell you on, basically. As a match, I actually enjoyed this one because I have zero memory of the actual match, but it was built on the struggles of Shawn Michaels. The young talents such as the Hart Dynasty and Kofi Kingston looked really good during this match and were some of my favorite parts of the match. The story was simply dominating HBK and the fact that Raw seemed to underestimate SmackDown greatly. HBK was isolated and beaten repeatedly. There was this good moment where HBK broke free and super kicked Finlay, but then the Hart Dynasty come in and these guys looked very experienced. And I really forgot how talented Kid and Smith were in their early days. Like, both men are talented in general, not on the mic, but the way they were wrestling this early in their career. It felt like they were born with the wrestling knowledge of seeing as they're from the Hart family. It's ABC stuff. I haven't seen a Hart Dynasty match since probably 2010. It's not supposed to come off as a surprise, but just something to mention. Shawn Michaels was beaten badly, but then the hot tags happened happen, and in comes the game. He turns up the intensity. SmackDown has no way of stopping him. Kofi brings his exciting offense into the match, and then it gets chaotic. And I'm watching this at 2 a.m. in my bed, and I'm excited. It's hype because everyone's hitting their finishers back and forth. And Raw's greatest weapon on this night, the Big Show, finally enters the match, only to turn on his teammates. He dropped Kofi, KO'd Triple H, and walked out. It was so hilarious because this madman turned heel while being heel. How does that work? I don't know, but it's the most absurd Big Show thing ever. This guy turned so much, turning heel and face so much, that he learned how to connect and break paradoxes because he's a heel, but then he turned heel while being a heel. It's so confusing. He didn't seem that happy about it. SmackDown took advantage to win the match. Very good match. It's not a 4-star match, but it's enjoyable for what it was. Some of the guys didn't tag in, but it doesn't take away from this one. It's not the best SmackDown vs. Raw match ever for certain, but it's a bit of a gem, I'd say. Plus, the entire Raw roster the next night jumped Big Show, which was funny. It stems from this match. He ended up getting a World Heavyweight Championship match for his efforts here by Teddy Long. This match did a good job with its new young talent, in particular the Hart Dynasty and Kofi Kingston, and it also meant that SmackDown won bragging rights. Cody attacked Kofi after the match, blaming him for the loss. And the main event, Randy Orton defends the WWE Championship against John Cena in an Anywhere Goes 60-minute Iron Man match. A great decision to make this Anywhere Goes. The complicated and often divisive history of John Cena and Randy Orton's feud has had some highs and lows. While both men at the end of the day are each other's biggest rival, or one of, it wasn't always rosy and happy and entertaining. 2009 saw these two men practically glued to each other during the summer and fall, but this match promised to close out the story between them. John Cena was on Orton's heels and annoyed him to the point where the Viper did offer Cena a match, but wanted him to leave Raw and go to SmackDown if he loses. Logistics, this and that, but man, I wish John Cena did go to SmackDown because that brand would have offered a fresh and different perspective of his character and matches. The promo for this match is incredible. It made their feud seem like the best of the decade, which is deceiving, and this Iron Man match as the one to finally settle their differences once and for all. Randy Orton looked so menacing. The thing about the guy is that he had his entire character figured out. The small things, just the way he'd press into his teeth and make his veins pop out. The bald look, his physique. The guy looked like a 6-foot snake. You know, like everything about him was excellent and established. So to start things, both men were trying to crack the code when Orton messed up badly and found himself in the STF. He quickly taps out to avoid further punishment, which left everybody except himself confused. He had this look on his face like he was caught stealing the whole batch of catering cookies, but it was a smart strategy. They had this exciting sequence which led to an RKO from out of nowhere by Randy Orton to even the odds. The fans are going crazy. Both men remembered that the match was no disqualification, so of course they went to the outside. The outside benefited Orton greatly because he busted Cena open, which only drove him crazy and led to a burst of energy from the adrenaline and anger. Unfortunately, WWE was terrified of blood during this time, so he saw for a few seconds. Then the match slows down due to Cena's cut, and it led to a big moment where both men pinned each other to make it 2-2. The match was obviously going to have to slow down, but it didn't go there just yet. It's very hard to pull off this match because it requires ideas, and typically ideas go out after 35 minutes in a singles match, especially one like this, so you need melodrama. Legacy tried to jump Cena, the numbers got to him, and Orton took advantage to finally take the lead in this Iron Man match. At this point, 21 minutes had passed in the match, and we've seen some good moments, but this wasn't sustainable. The heart of the match was Orton taking control throughout the next set of falls. Kofi's interference didn't do much to stop Orton's momentum, and he got to slow down the pace and dissect the challenger. We really remember the lunatic, the psycho that 2009 Randy Orton was here. The guy throws Cena into a part of the stage, the lighting stage exploded, and that was enough for yet another fall in Orton's favor. It was also at this point that this crazy man noticed that he had touched a part of the pyrotechnics, and we just gotta say, it's the voices. The voices are making Orton go crazy. He's having this battle within himself, and when I call it a battle, it's more of Brock Lesnar and Kofi Kingston. The guy's conscience was more gone than Finn Balor's push. He was never gonna regret his actions or back off or have a change of heart. He's not. It's Randy Orton 2009. Orton's staring in shock like a human who discovered fire for the first time. But the guy lost it with each pressing of the button, and I'm left thinking, Randy Orton genuinely is a domestic terrorist. This guy in wrestling is straight up #1 on the PG era's most wanted. This is one of those things I think about. What if this version of Orton was around 3 years earlier? He was doing this stuff under the PG rating, and it was already insane. What would he do a couple of years ago? But the whole pyro attempt didn't work, and he was losing it checking for burn marks. This demon was about to rage quit because his opponent didn't have burn scars or burn marks. This stuff was so crazy that I was laughing because the guy looked so committed to this character. And for me, when I smile or laugh at something like this, it's because the person genuinely knows how to play their character. The champion was whooping the challenger's ass here. A dominant performance from Orton, but he got too relaxed, which led to a cheap roll-up that Cena managed to score. And he's already a crazy man, but this guy was breaking interval rules to dish out the punishment. Anger, frustration, psychosis, that's 2009 Randy Orton. He pummeled Cena and dropped him with his brutal DDT to win the fall. I like how he just wants to get the perfect angle. He really slows it down, positions himself well, and then from out of nowhere you see Cena's head land flat on the ground. The move is already devastating, but when Orton himself sells it like that and holds in the anticipation, trying to get everything perfect, it makes the move look terrifying. So at this point, the match was nearing its third and final chapter. Orton had already done a number on Cena, but now it was about continuing and riding the momentum. The beating though was increasing Cena's power level for him to activate Super Saiyan. With every punch and strike from Orton, he was only awakening the entity known as Super Cena. It got to the point where Orton was making a run for it with 17 minutes left. Cena was the most dominant he had ever been during this match. Just destruction and anarchy from his part. Blasting Orton with a garbage can, countering his moves, throwing him through the barricade. And best of all, the moment that signified that John Cena was truly back in the match. He lifts Orton, who was lifeless and out of it, steps onto the steel steps and connects with the attitude adjustment through the announce table. And that right there tied the match and made it anybody's match as there was only 9 minutes left. This moment right here was brought to you by SmackDown vs. Raw 2011, coming soon to the Wrestling Premiere channel in 2030 probably. We had seen the pendulum swing in their favors multiple times. It's natural to expect that to follow. The 10 minutes here passed by pretty fast. The desperation to be WWE Champion showed greatly here with Cena taking a huge risk bringing in a table. He ended up going through it at the worst time as the clock was ticking down. Just at the worst moment because his momentum had died out. Broken, spent, but the heart to be champion was on full display with both men. Strike exchanges, lefts and rights being thrown. Cena powers through, almost begins his momentum burst again, but he bumps into the referee. And Orton's greatest weapon, the RKO, was brought out. Boom! He has him in place, but there's no referee. Once Charles Robinson came in, it was too late. And at this point, his great move didn't work. He gets into that psychosis state, activates his power, and he unleashed demons from eons ago for the punt. He's ready to punt him into oblivion, but he's caught. It does work in his favor a bit, seeing as Cena needs the win before overtime, but Orton was doing everything he can, everything in his power to escape. But the STF was too much. He's flopping and running like a fish, like the snake he was, but the man was caught. For as much as he tried to fight out, Cena had him down, and Orton tapped out with 5 seconds left. New champion. Great match. It's so damn hard to pull off an Iron Man match, legitimately. Brett and Shawn were perfect for the concept, and even they found out that it was much harder to pull off. Rock and Triple H did better with the concept, but that also had the Attitude Era brawling to help out. Brock and Angle did very good with it to the point many consider it WWE's best Iron Man match. Here, it was super important to make it chaotic because if it was more like Brock and Angle or the very first one, these two would fall flat on their heads. The feud wasn't a competitive one. It was more fiery and intense to the point where both men wanted to prove that they were better while also kicking the other guy's ass. Anywhere Goes was an integral part of why this match was good. It allowed for us to see Orton's darkest side once again on full display. After watching this match, it wouldn't have been an injustice if this guy was thrown into a dark cell with a key thrown away. Solitary confinement of the highest order for this creature. Now, there was some downtime here with this one, of course. There always is in the Iron Man match, and watching it, I felt like this was a 30 or 40 minute match stretched into an hour because these guys at times were doing Atletico Madrid level time wasting. But you have to. You can't see these guys countering a finisher every second and scoring false. There needs to be selling and actual ramifications from the moves. The high point of the match were mostly when Cena was on offense, which is a great thing because the babyface kind of has to be the most exciting part of a match. He doesn't have to be, but it's natural that he is. But this is my favorite Iron Man match. I don't know how you personally will feel about it, but I liked how it turned out. There's not much I would want to change with it, other than the time, of course, but then it's not an Iron Man match. It kept my attention late at night, and this is the perfect match to snore to, but it wasn't that. That's Bragging Rights 2009. Solid event. That was fun going into it. It's not too fun or anything like that, but it surely does pass by fast. Do I recommend this event overall? I'd say yeah, it's decent. It's not any of the previous events in 2009. It wasn't as good as them, but if you're a fan of John Cena and Randy Orton, you're probably gonna love that Iron Man match. I hear more good than bad from that match. You know, it's not exactly divisive. I'd say it's like 80-20, 80% like it, 20% don't. Then again, some of you guys in the comments will probably prove me wrong and be like, this is one of the worst things, an abomination. I don't know, but that's your opinion. If you guys enjoyed this video, we could do another October pay-per-view. So yeah. Alright, what you guys think of Bragging Rights 2009? Please comment down below. That's the first video. Make sure you hit the glam slam on the like button, perhaps the 88 on the subscribe button. Peace. I'm out.